Hi, and welcome back to the $1 Million Events Podcast. This is the place for online leaders to get inspired, connect deeper with their communities, and host better in-person events. Hi, my name is Jami. I'm your host. And today, we're going to talk all about foot traffic for your conference. So grab your favorite water, kombucha, tea, whatever drink you prefer, and let's dive. You guys, we're going to start first with, what is foot traffic? So foot traffic is the path at which your attendees are going to follow to, the different things on your agenda when you're hosting a conference. So, for instance, when an attendee pulls up to the hotel, they're going to get out of the car and go to the registration table. Then they're going to check into their room. So they're going to grab their room key and walk to their room. Now, the foot traffic for the event really starts with where is the registration table? Where's the check-in table? So they can say, hey, I'm here, and grab whatever lanyard or goodie bag or whatever they need to do to say, hey, I'm actually here. Then the process goes to from the registration table to the event space, whether that's a networking reception or the conference itself. What's the distance between the two? Are they labeled? And when there's a line at the registration table, does that line block anything? Will there create a bottleneck, which is a point where that middle section where people get stuck, trapped, and confused? Another way to look at foot traffic is from the conference room to breakfast or some sort of break or food. Is there physical space for people to line up functionally and do whatever they need to do without confusion, without long lines, and without really being annoyed at they don't know what's happening right now? So foot traffic is really the path at which the attendee goes through the entire event. Now that we have an understanding, foot traffic is really important because you can really tell when someone has thoughtfully planned out the experience versus someone who's absolutely just winging it. Because what usually ends up happening is the registration table isn't thoughtfully placed. The signage isn't out where it needs to be or big enough or bold enough. And then also what happens is buffets or registration tables block doors. So what that does is it just creates congestion of confusion. Am I in a line? What line am I in? What am I doing right now? How long is this going to take? And when people start asking those questions, it creates negative feelings about the conference itself. And we don't want people to feel negatively about that experience that you're hosting. And usually this is what DIYers really mess up, or people who just hire for production and not for logistics. This is a very key logistics component where so many coaches are just not putting in that effort or paying for that experience because they think they can do it themselves. And if you are a high-end coach that specializes in luxury, high-end movements, and you want people to enjoy their time there, please hire professionals. Okay, anyway, when you're planning out your conference, I'm going to talk about 3 places where you can really think about and visualize the foot traffic of your conference before your conference starts. That way you have a better, more thoughtful flow of the attendee experience. So the first time that you could think about this is during a site visit. Now, a site visit is when you visit a hotel and they walk you through the different space that you might need or what they have available during your preferred dates. So it usually starts in the lobby, and then you go to the conference space, and then you can go to the different conference rooms where they're having breakouts or one big general session, and then you go to the elevators, and then they take you to a couple of sleeping rooms, and then you're done. While you're doing a site visit, what you should be doing as the planner or leader is, how would my event look in this space? What does my event look like here? And granted, the hotel people will be I've placed your registration table here, and we can have buffets here, and this is what this looks like. They should have an idea of what looks best in their property. But then at the same time, you need to be thinking about what looks best for what your vision is at their property. And they might not be the same. There's been a lot of site visits I've performed that I was like, you know what? Nope, we're switching this room. This room is really good with natural light, so we're going to have the meeting space there because people are going to be there the most of the time. And then this room is good for meals because they're only there for an hour and there's no lights or something like that. It could be a placement of the AV, the presentation and stuff like that could also dictate which room. But knowing what you want in your brain before you get there or as you're walking through will help you visualize actually hosting your retreat or your conference at this property. Number 2 is flow based on agenda. So while you're doing a site visit, you're probably not going to have an agenda like thought out. You might have a high level. You should know your transformation and who you're serving, but you might not have the agenda thought out. So when I think about foot traffic based on the agenda, you might think about where the registration goes to the networking reception the night before. You might move the registration table to the meeting space the next day, and then pairing or how you're serving the food with the meeting space with the registration / like information desk is really, really important. And you're going to want to think about activations. So when I say activations, I mean like a prayer tree or a photo booth or something that people would stop, participate with, interact with, and then move on to the next thing. You're going to want to lay those out of what you want. Because when you're doing the site visit, when you're doing the agenda, when you're thinking about the foot traffic as a whole, does it make sense for the general session to be on floor 1, the breakout session to be on floor 3, and the registration table to be in the lobby? It usually doesn't, because then people are like pinballs or ping pong balls bouncing all over the hotel, and they're like, I don't understand where I'm supposed to be right now. You want to streamline the process as much as possible and make it as easy as possible for the attendee to know exactly what comes next, to know exactly where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, including meeting room names, diagrams, and advance notice of what to expect. A lot of people get there early and then like explore the hotel so they know exactly where they're supposed to be. And then the third, we're going to talk about bottlenecks and how to avoid them, which I've already kind of talked about during the site visit. But one of the primary places bottlenecks happen are at the registration table, because when you open up registration from like 4 to 6 or something like that, then people know that they need to be there, check in at 3, and then be ready at the registration at 4. So usually you'll have a line at 4 when it starts or even slightly before. So that could create a bottleneck. Now, if you have hundreds of people coming to your conference, then you need to think about how many tables do I need so I could have multiple lines so people aren't waiting 30 minutes? How many people do I need to serve those multiple lines and in an efficient way? And then does the space that you're going to host registration at have the space for multiple tables and multiple people to check people in? If the answer is no to any of those, then what I would do is elongate the registration time, have it be from 1 to 4 or 1 to 6, and then have it be the next day, really giving people an opportunity on flow, which is as they arrive, to check in, go to the registration, go to the room, which reduces that bottleneck at the registration table. The next place I've already mentioned is breakfast buffet. So I usually do a breakfast buffet on flow or a lunch buffet on flow. And what that means is just as people arrive. When I do breakfast buffets, that's usually the first thing that they do during the day. So what they're going to do is they're going to arrive at breakfast. And now we have tons of different people, and tons of different people have their breakfast differently. Some people are there 10 minutes early. Some people roll in 10 minutes before the event starts and just like eats at their table. On flow is really great because people can just come and go. This usually doesn't have a bottleneck, especially if it's in a separate room from the conference space itself. That is really key, especially if you have a VIP container where they might get priority seating close to the stage. You want the VIPs to be able to VIP, meaning get in line to get into the room before everyone else. So by having the breakfast in a different spot and then allowing the VIPs to rope up helps with that traffic flow, because you're not going to have everyone in the breakfast room, because people are going to be getting there early for VIP, eating their breakfast, getting in line so they can enter the space, where general admission would come to breakfast a little bit later, staggering the attendee arrivals, and then allowing them to enter in the space after the VIP. It's very important to tell each group, or whatever group you're in, what times are open and closed to each of the groups. So say you have a VIP group and breakfast will be from 8 to 9, and then VIP can enter the meeting space, that conference area, 9 to 9:30. Like, that is when VIP can enter. And then for general admission, you could say, okay, well, breakfast for you is 8:30 to 9:30, and then at 9:30, you can enter the meeting space. Therefore, the VIP would obviously be there early. They'd get in early. The general admission would come later. And then that's creating a section or a segment of the two different attendee types, allowing them and allowing the process of the foot traffic from the buffet or breakfast to the conference room to be a little bit smoother, because you're breaking up the group intentionally. And that also allows the VIP to not have to worry about standing in line, and they know they're actually going to get in the front, that kind of thing. When you're serving lunch, it's best to do a wedding style, where you would direct, the meeting planner would direct tables, a certain amount of tables to go at a time. It's also helpful if you have a couple hundred people to have multiple buffets that have the same thing. So you would essentially have 4 lines versus just 2 lines. So that's really helpful. And making sure you stagger the people in the line. And this is a little bit harder to control, because everyone's going to want to get up and either go to the bathroom and then go to the buffet at the same time. So it's really important to communicate clearly how lunch will be done. Another place that a bottleneck happens is usually at the bar. So sometimes when you have networking receptions and you have 4 round tables of 8 and then some high boys, which are like the cocktail tables that you stand up at, which would fit 4 people, then if you have those tables too close to the bar, or if the bar is too close to the door, that also will create a bottleneck, especially if you don't have enough bartenders. So when you have a couple hundred people, I recommend 2 bartenders per 100 people. And that will help with keeping the lines lower. I had 6 bartenders for 250 people. But that kept the line moving. It kept the lines shorter, especially as people arrive. People are going to want to get their free drinks. So they might arrive earlier to be able to get in line to get their drinks. That way, people have options to go to, and it does not back up the doors. It doesn't back into the tables or the buffet or the stage. You're able to best control the foot traffic or the bottlenecks of the people who are seeking beverages. It's usually only a bottleneck once it first opens, because people are excited to get a cocktail. Maybe it's like a happy hour situation, then they roll into food, and everyone's arriving at the same time. So the more you can control and stagger people's arrival, is the easier it is to reduce bottlenecks in your event foot traffic, and then therefore reducing the amount of time people have to wait in line, because people get annoyed waiting in line for bathrooms, for beer, and for food. If you are curious about more about foot traffic, about how it impacts your conference, I do have a blog article on this that talks about the different ways to create a flow that is entertaining with activation stations, but also reduces the likelihood of bottlenecks. And I will put that below. This has been so much fun. Please connect with me on IG. Take a screenshot of this if you've enjoyed it and let me know what you learned today. And then on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. And I'll see you later.